Hi everyone, welcome to Insights IAS. In this session today, we'll talk about a very serious issue and which has taken the country right now by storm. Apart from the recent election results, but if you see today, a statement or a comment was given by a social media influencer, a podcaster, and they were basically sitting on a dais of India's Got Latent show, and everyone in the country is talking about that comment. That that comment was so obnoxious in nature, it devalues the social culture of the country. And in this session today, we'll talk about, since these social media influencers wield so much of power, influencing crores of people. And that is why it is important to understand the dark side and ethical responsibility of influencers from a UPSC perspective, from a society perspective, and definitely from a ethics perspective. Welcome to today's session. Let's deep dive into this session. And my name is Sanjay Kumar. I hope you know that by now. I am an Insights IAS faculty. So when you talk about social media influencer, they wield immense power. There is no doubt about it, shaping public discourses, behavior, values, particularly among the youth. You take any social media influencer, Raj Shamani, Ranveer Allahbadia, multiple social media influencers. Today, even the top politicians and top bureaucrats go on their show because the kind of public discourse these people are able to generate. Even if you see the US presidential election, even Donald Trump had to go to these social media influencers. There is no problem going to these social media influencers. It's important, if we combine all of them, millions and millions of people are following them. And if you give your viewpoint, this viewpoint reaches masses. And today we are definitely living in digital media age. We agree on that. But at the same time, a recent controversy such as the inappropriate remarks made by YouTuber Ranveer Allahbadia on India's Got Latent highlight the ethical concerns surrounding digital content creation. Now, it's a line of Spider-Man. Big power comes big responsibility. So if you get this power of influencing so many people, youth, adult, and the older generation, everyone is following you, then it becomes appropriate, it becomes pertinent that what content you are giving to the people is legitimate and it follows a decent public discourse. From a UPSC Society and Ethics perspective, this incident, what Ranveer Allahbadia said on India's Got Latent, and there were other judges also which spoke something which I feel was against the public morality. Social responsibility was not taken when they were speaking those particular comments, and ethical leadership in the digital age also becomes important when you are sitting on such powerful social media influencers position. So the comments which were said by Ranveer, or for that matter Samay Raina or the other judges, because by now FIR and so many actions have started, so many actions against these people have started. But the fact remains, why did this happen? Because if you see this show and if you check social media influencer, to reach this current debacle and this current standard of comments, it was already happening for a very long period of time. And now, once it crossed that Lakshman Rekha, if I could say so, or once it crossed the ethical barriers, the government or the people have woken up. Otherwise, many of them might be, really finding interesting what they used to say earlier, but eventually what they said now was not gulpable by the government or by the public. Now, influencers as role models in society, they have an impact on public perception. So social media personalities have millions of followers, and when you have millions of followers who consider you as role models, definitely and eventually you have a lot of responsibility what you are giving them on content. So their words and actions set trends and influence opinions. So you are an influencer, whatever product you tell them, people might start buying them. For example, if you're giving spiritual content, if you're giving business content, economic content, people will eat this content. But if you are not taking responsibility of your content and if you're saying anything, it will have debilitating effect on the society. So irresponsible statement by influencers can lead to normalization of unethical behavior, damaging social values. And this is one of the major problems which we can see, not only the current statement which has been given by the social media influencer, but this has happened in the past also. So it is important that this normalization of unethical behavior, continuously using foul language on social media platforms and making normalizing, is that correct? That is something I'm asking you. What do you think about? Should this kind of content continue, or you have different opinion? Please mention in the comment section. Now, second thing is that if this kind of content continues, it corrupts the young minds, because young mind, the maturity might come late. So they might feel that whatever content is coming on the YouTube, or for that matter, any social media platform, where foul language or any obnoxious thing about your parents, about sex has been, about different sexes being spoken about, they start feeling that this is the new normal. That might not be the new normal. Okay. So with most influencers following teenagers and young adults, they are following it. And because of this sensationalization and views, they will start giving this kind of clickbait content, which young adults and teenagers, they will find this offensive humor, misogynistic comments, or insensitive comments which can shape immature minds negatively, and they will start perceiving this offensive humor, misogynistic comments, insensitive comments as that, this is normalization, we can talk like this is what the society is all about. But that's exactly the question. You are corrupting the young minds, and this will become the new normal. So such content can desensitize you to ethical boundaries, social decency, and respect for others. So recently I was hearing that this one of the judges was saying, I was hearing on one of the audios on the X, that there is no boundary in comedy. So even if you talk about freedom of expression also has limitation. Your expression cannot go and start disturbing freedom of expression of someone else. And at the end of the day, comedy will also have limits. Next is ethical responsibilities of public figures. And once you become a public figure, once millions and billions of people are following you, definitely you have ethical responsibility. There is no doubt about that. As public figures, influencers must adhere to ethical communication, ensuring their content does not promote harmful stereotypes. You need to realize that young minds, youngsters are following you. If you make this normal, if you make misogynistic comments normal, if you make foul language normal, if you start giving offensive statements against parents, elders, relatives, it will become the new normal, and they will feel this is an absolutely good content, consume it, eat it, and eventually that will become their perception of the society, and that is how the degradation in the society happens. So harmful stereotypes, degrading social values, hate speech, or social divisions, that is what it would lead towards if the ethical responsibilities by public figures are not taken. At the same time, there are very good influencers also. For example, Palki Sharma Upadhyay, ma'am, one of the best news anchors which I have seen, and how she represents, India on multiple platforms, the kind of news she brings, the positive framework, that is one kind of influencers. Then you can have Dr. Radha Krishna Pillai sir, leadership guidance, Gaur Gopal Das for spiritual wisdom, Think School, one of the best YouTube channels which I have seen from the point of view of business, national and international issues. So there are multiple good content creators which have taken this responsibility, and they also, for example, Nitish Rajput, whatever news he is analyzing, in the description he will also tell you from where I have taken this news, what are the resources I have taken. So multiple ethical content creators are there which have taken the responsibility of what they are representing and how that would be benefiting the society in a very good way. So constructive content creation is also happening, but at the same time, this problem where social media influencers don't take responsibility and give this irresponsible and crash comments, it becomes very debilitating in nature. Let's move towards the ethical side. So violation of social and cultural norms. So there is no doubt about that. India has a strong moral and ethical values shaped by its cultural and constitutional morality, which I'm sure if you're an UPSC aspirant, you must know about the cultural and the constitutional morality, which is very high in the country, and it should be high. Inappropriate or offensive content violates these norms, leading to public outrage, and that is exactly what has happened. So freedom of expression versus ethical responsibility. So I just told you some, I think around some minutes back, that if you have freedom of expression under the article 19(1) clause A, it is subject to reasonable restriction. You under the garb of comedy does not mean that you can start saying anything about parents and fathers and mothers of anyone else. You cannot start making mockery of them, and on that show it has been continuously being done. This one has just become very extreme, but even if you go to the previous episodes, you will find multiple clips where people have written that this is not comedy, just on that this is dark comedy. People have just using fancy English names, but if you if you understand English, you will understand that what they are doing, they are only trying to get views and engagement, because this will just generate sensationalism and people will like or dislike it, and that's what exactly want. So at the end of the day, it is just pure money. It is nothing related to comedy. So in the interest of morality and public order, that is the reasonable restriction. But I think over a period of time, since the show was continuously giving these kind of comments, right now it reached the nadir of this degradation, and finally some action has started. And I would also want to know, what are your views? Do you think what was spoken, what was said by Ranveer, was it correct? There was one female judge also. She also gave some very obscene comments about someone's mother. What do you think? It is correct? Moving deeper into ethics, if we go from theory point of view, utilitarian versus deontological ethics. If we move towards utilitarian view, it is focusing on final consequences. So it says that the content should be judged by the consequences it produces. If the content what it is producing, it is negative for the society, it should be discouraged. But the problem with this, that if it is negative, by the time you get to know, it might already be spreading. On the other side, if you move towards the deontological view, it is says duty based ethics, which is very much on the social media influencer, that regardless of the consequences, influencers have a duty to uphold ethical behavior and societal norms. So these are two viewpoints. Obviously, you can go much more in detail into this if a question comes and add your pointers into that. But on deontological viewpoint, if you see, the focus is that social media influencer has to take the responsibility of the content he is providing, be it any digital media platform they are using, YouTube, Instagram, or anything, X or whatever it is. They have to uphold ethical behavior and the societal norms, which is very important for the society. So these two angles are there, utilitarian versus deontological ethics. Moving further into this, next is accountability and governance challenges. So one major problem is there is hardly any regulation. You open YouTube, I'm only talking about, let's open India's YouTube. Like, obviously, I mean, Indians putting content in YouTube. There are multiple YouTubers who got famous because they were using foul languages, and that became the need of the hour. People started liking it. Need of the hour in the terms, people were crazy about that content. One major issue is this lack of regulation. If you take news media channels, there is regulation over it. And if they provide wrong content or wrong news, they need to apologize. They need to give statements that why this particular news was wrong, or actions can be, certain actions by the government can be taken. But when it comes to social media, there is lack of strict ethical oversight, making it difficult to hold influencers accountable for offensive comment. If you remember, recently an influencer had given some statement regarding Assamese people. And the problem with social media is that whatever you feel, you feel something about one person or one state, you will say that I have read somewhere. There is no one asking from where have you read, what is the source regarding this, what are the resources or what are the books you've referred. Nobody is bothered to tell that. But if that content is generating sensationalism, huge amount of millions of views, the content will go. That is exactly what has happened with India's Got Latent also. So need for self-regulation, influencers must adopt ethical content policies to ensure responsible messaging. See, this self-regulation is good, but until unless government creates some kind of law, no action will be taken, because when it comes to self-regulation, you are basically asking these influencers that you need to think twice before you are putting content. If they have been so much responsible, they would have not done it. So yes, this can be a point that, for that matter, that there needs to be self-regulation, but certain government authority or some law, some act needs to be there to keep these people in check, what they are putting the content. Otherwise, these kind of incidents will keep happening. Next is ethical influence versus toxic influence. I've already given you the example of Palki Sharma, Think School, And there are multiple examples of ethical influence. When a good ethical influence happens, it educates, it motivates, and it inspires. If we go to the late president of the country, APJ Abdul Kalam, that was not the age of social media. But if you read his books, he went to schools, he went to universities, and what positive impact that person was able to do when the social media was not there. I'm talking about that age to the current age. So Kalam Saab used public platforms to inspire youth towards science and ethical leadership. Some modern influence promotes superficial lifestyle, controversial content for views, and that is where this ethical influence versus toxic influence is there. Today's lecture started with this toxic influence, but if you see, there are many people who are giving ethical influence. I've given you example. There are multiple YouTubers which do give that kind of content. But the problem is that the toxic influence generates more views and it is more viral in nature. So the focus is views and virality of the video. And because of this, ethics and society takes a backseat rather than, focusing on education, etc. and all. Now, if you move towards the broader societal impact, decline of social morality, if this kind of content, which we have just seen what one of the social media influencers has said, if this continues or this kind of content keep coming on our table on day-to-day basis for youth, for adults, or for any generation, this offensive content will become normalized. It weakens moral boundaries, leading to increased hate speech, misogyny, and insensitive humor. It creates desensitized society, and that is how chaos in the society will be created, which might lead to the break of the society also, where unethical behavior is celebrated instead of condemned. This is a very important line. This is what I have seen in the last 2 to 3 years, or in the recent 6 months. This has increased a lot, specifically YouTube, Instagram. Lot of content is coming where this unethical behavior is being celebrated like anything. Celebrated, multiple views, comments, and because of this being celebrated, it has become spiral in nature. And because of this, multiple other content creators have also come which have started doing the same. So celebrated instead of condemned. That's one of the major problems. So moving further, rise of toxic digital culture. I think it is rising like anything. Let me put that way. So the trend of sensationalizing content for engagement leads to race to bottom, which we are seeing. That is the effect. The comment which has come today, if you see this show over the last 2-3 months, similar kind of statements or degrading statements have been said. And right now it has reached the lowest point, that is your nadir. So content for engagement leads to race to the bottom, where controversy is rewarded over meaningful discourse. And that is also one of the reasons that when ethical or good content is created, those people hardly get any views. And after some point of time, they might leave or close the channel also. Many content creators have left the YouTube or the platforms. Some of them have been able to get decent number of views, or they have been able to reach to masses, so they are doing good. But on the other hand, when the toxic digital culture, this sensationalization and these degrading or obnoxious statements are said, uh, they become viral in nature, and eventually controversy is rewarded over meaningful discourse. Platform prioritize viral content over ethical consideration, amplifying negative social trends. And this poses a huge amount of questions on our society standards, on our ethics, on our morality. There is no doubt about it. And that is why we are discussing the responsibility which social media influencers need to take. So, need for ethical digital citizenship. Yes, digital platform must promote responsible engagement, encouraging ethical influencers who spread awareness, education, and constructive values. So, there are many content creators, they do this, but do they get any kind of push from YouTube or any other social media? I hardly know about that. Some of them might also be getting it, but that is 100% there, that when it comes to this degrading content or sensationalizing content, they definitely get some kind of push. I'm not saying that the digital platform is doing it. Probably even the society might be liking that content, but on the other hand, the rebuttal is that if you continuously give that content to the public, they are forced to look towards that content. If you give them good content, they will eventually start consuming the good content, right? So society must shift towards conscious content consumption. This is something which also society needs to take. And people in power, people in politics, people in government, and people who are in the position of influencing people, they need to talk about good content consumption. Good content consumption, hardly people talk about it. And that is a problem, that people in power, people who are in the position of influencing people or who can generate a good public discourse, they need to talk about conscious good content consumption. Rejecting content that promotes insensitivity, toxicity, and misinformation, sadly, nobody talks about it. And if somebody is talking about it, probably that person is not so famous and he's hardly able to reach people. So if people who are popular, who are legitimate and responsible social media influencers, they need to talk about that, rejecting that content that promotes insensitivity, toxicity, and misinformation, and shift towards conscious good content consumption. In the conclusion, the need for ethical and leadership among influencers, that needs to be there. Their social media influencer must recognize that reach comes with responsibility. With big power comes big responsibility. The line of Spider-Man movie, they need to realize that if they are able to generate huge amount of business, if they are able to get so much of love, respect of the audience, at the same time, they also need to take the responsibility of giving them good content consumption. So they must uphold ethical communication, positive examples for followers, self-regulation. It's good that you need to have self-regulation, but I think a law and act probably would help us, because whatever digital content is going, there is hardly any checks and balances to control it. So self-regulation, the content to avoid misleading or corrupt young minds, and on the other side, government also needs to take some action. So some policy making, some law, it can come from MeToo, and self-regulatory digital content frameworks need to be there. And as UPSC aspirants and future policy makers, it is crucial that we analyze the digital ethics from a governance perspective also, because if this kind of degrading content increases and the government and the society is not taking care of it, then it will eventually question the society, morality, ethics of today. And we need to ensure a balanced approach between freedom and responsibility in digital spaces. I'm not talking about, or for that matter, we are not saying that you need to barge on the freedom of expression. But freedom of expression definitely has a reasonable restriction. So freedom and responsibility in digital spaces need to go hand in hand. It has to be balanced in nature. So this was a very important issue which I wanted to talk about. So much of hue and cry has happened over this issue. Everyone is talking about it, but I wanted to give a UPSC perspective from an ethics and society point of view. What do you think about these kind of statements? Where are we heading as a society? Please do mention that in the comment section. I hope you did like this session. Please like the session, share the session, do press the bell icon and follow Insights IAS. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.